Hello, it's Animoot time again. A common phrase is, it's not what you know, but who you know. How true is that in animation stuff? What do you reckon, Crowne?
Okay, well, of course it's true in animations and stuff. Animation's the same as every other place. Talk to your friends, or your buddies, or whoever. And like, how did you get that job? Or how did you end up over there? And they'll be like, well, somebody recommended me. Or, they said, oh, actually, I know this guy who's hiring for this over there. Or I know this girl who is an animator and she needs this on the project. So it's all about who you know, not necessarily what you know.
How's it affected your experience?
Okay, so I have found that over time, as I've started to recognize and know and interact with different animators on YouTube, you kind of end up in like a clique. And you all help each other out and share ideas and talk about stuff that you wouldn't talk about with just, like a normal follower, or that you talk about your behind the scenes production stuff. You complain about YouTube. You start podcasts together. So, but like when you're just starting out, you don't really know anybody. So it takes a while of kind of making videos and reading through the comments and talking to people in the comments, and then going and commenting on other people who are sort of in your same bracket, like people who are also just starting out, and you make friends that way. And then over time, those friends end up getting jobs. And then, they talk about you over there, and you talk about, you end up getting a job here, and you interlink, and everything's kind of connected in that weird way where you end up getting jobs and commissions and things because someone who paid for a piece of art from you said, wow, I'm really happy with this art. And they keep showing it to their friends. And one of their friends says, hey, can I have her email? I want to commission her for some art. And then you end up with like 2 customers. And then pretty soon it's just crazy and out of hand all the time. You get all these customers because they keep recommending you.
Do you find you ever pass jobs around like trading cards?
Yes, we do that.
Oh, I don't have time for this one, but this person will probably be able to do it for you.
People come to you with jobs that you either don't have time to do, or you feel like you don't, like there's other people who need work who could do it better than you do. So you say, well, actually, I couldn't do this right now, but if you want to talk to so-and-so, he'd be able to do it. Or so yes, we end up passing jobs around like trading cards. Do you do that too?
In freelance world, yeah. In studio world, you end up passing the artists around like trading cards.
Oh, wait. How does that work?
Well, it depends on who's available and who's not. So if someone has a short-term contract, or they're still studying, or have other things going on, then, you can only commission them for a short period of time. And there's even... has there been occasions where Yeah, there's been times where, individual artists have been split across 2 different locations, or, go take a week to go help someone else out for a bit. I think that's probably more an Australian thing because everyone's a bit more chummy here. I've heard that a lot of the American studios are a bit more rivalry with each other, and you're not supposed to talk to each other or something like that, which I think is dumb. Because we only have to benefit from helping each other out. Like
certain artists only working within certain studios over there, especially the big ones, like, DreamWorks artists do not end up going over to Disney. Like, they all kind of stay in their groups.
I guess once you're in one of the top tier places, you can sort of settle down a bit more.
You can, but the other thing is if you get any type of renown, you can move around. Like, if people know who you are.
Well, but those places always have work going on as well.
Yes.
Whereas, a lot of other studios, they may or may not have a show going on at the time. So when it finishes, you have to go find something somewhere else. And, if you might get headhunted by 1 or 2 places at a time, or, maybe something is gearing up before something else is finished. And, there's been people who have to think about, well, do I have to see this show through to the end and then be out of a job? Or do I bail on this company now, guarantee myself a job for another 1.5 years, but potentially piss off the people I'm with now?
Oh, yeah. Ooh, that's a tricky situation because, like we said, again, if it's getting jobs in the industry is all about the network. So if you piss off the people you're working with now, everybody talks to each other. So they're going to be like, well, he didn't finish out his term here, and he'd bail on us again. Why do we want him here?
Depends on the kind of relationship you have, really. Like if you are, properly friends with the people who you've been hired by, versus just being another number in the system, that tends to change quite a bit as well. So in regards to what you're talking about with growing up in a particular clique and you all sort of find jobs around the same time and whatever, I found it's very similar in Studio Land, but there's sort of three different kinds of people, because there's the ones who were before you, the ones that you grew up alongside, and then the ones that come up after you.
Nope, that's the same here too. That's kind of what I mean by the clique. Like,
Okay.
so I know I get along with and I talk to not a lot. Like the bigger animators that are more well known, we don't necessarily all get to. We don't have like this secret chat room where we're all together, but we're all on each other's servers type of thing.
Yeah.
So every now and then we'll show up to ask a question or just be there. But there's this other group of animators who came before me, and they're the different clique, right? So I don't really talk to Vivzy Pop, for example, but she's been around much longer than I have on the top tier of things. And then you also have like the people who are coming up after me. So I don't really know them yet, and they're not really in my group, and once they do more work, then we probably end up knowing each other. So how is that on your end?
I suppose there is still a degree of like you tend to hang out with the people that you grew up alongside in the same way that like your year in high school or whatever. But no, I've definitely like bled into groups of people who were before and after as well.
Yeah.
The wonderful thing about it is that there's no sense of superiority. Although that you might be hanging out with someone who you really look up to or someone who looks up to you, there isn't really any kind of like entitlement, I guess, because you're all at the same level in the end. Like if someone's like just starting out and they don't have the experience you do, well, it may not stay that way. They're probably going to get really good really quick, and you'll end up working alongside them eventually.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
And you know, like I've sat next to people like I've like gotten started in the same week as people who have ended up becoming my boss later, and scenarios like that. So it's I think it's a lot of fun, because the ones that I grew up alongside, you know, they were just workmates for a time, and you know, they go on to achieve quite wonderful things, and now they would be considered quite valuable contacts, even though that's not how it started. They were just buddies at the time. So when people like when young artists and things worry about networking and hearing this thing of it's not what you know but who you know, there's often an element of fear or anxiety about putting yourself out there and getting to know new people, but I don't think it always has to be that way, because
No, I feel like it's almost natural. It's just if you're involved in the animation world and you're active in the animation world, it's not like you have to actively go out and be like, oh my gosh, I have to seek out the animators on the streets at night. It just kind of happens naturally. Like you're there, you go to your job and you meet people that way. And then over time, you know, everybody's position shifts around, but you keep in touch. So then you know who you can recommend for what, because you know what they're doing right now.
well, I've met people when you recommend that networking is important. They get worried and be like, oh, you know, I can't see myself doing that because I don't want to like go to a place and like cozy up to people and kiss ass just to, you know, try and get ahead. And I'm like, no, that's not it at all. It's, you know, maybe that's like getting jobs is like a natural byproduct of just being friendly. But, you know, I certainly don't try to meet people with the intention of getting work out of them.
No, because you could tell. I mean, like, we're all human. We can sense when somebody has an ulterior motive, right? Like, you can just sense it.
Yeah, no, it's usually just because they're just interesting people to meet. It's like, damn, you made this thing? That's cool. I want to hang out with you and, like, hear what it was like to make that thing. And, you know, if it ends up being someone that I actually end up getting to work alongside later down the track, then it's not something I'm thinking about at the time. But then years later, I'll be like, get weirdly starstruck by someone that I've known for a long time. Just upon reflecting on the journey that has taken.
Do you ever sit around and just think about all the amazing people you know?
Yeah, that sometimes happens.
Sometimes I'm just like, man, my friends are the coolest people. How did this happen? Like, when? What?
Yeah, I think it's great to be surrounded by so much talent, and keeps you pumped, and also it stops you from becoming stagnant because they're always getting better. So I can't afford to stop, otherwise I'll be left in the dust.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
So it's motivating in two different ways, out of excitement and out of fear.
Wait, that's like both the carrot and the stick, I guess.
But I do respect that some people do have more or less anxiety than others and more or less social skills than others, and it can take more energy to make those connections and contacts and things. So what networking advice would you have to give?
I'll talk about the YouTube side of things, or it doesn't necessarily need to be YouTube, but whatever, Dailymotion, Newgrounds.
The online world.
Yeah, online world. And I mentioned this in the beginning. The idea is you have to be active, so create content. We're talking about animation, so you definitely want to be making art or animation, something, and posting it. And then the idea is to go around and find people, I said, who are in your quote-unquote bracket, but other people who are sort of in a similar situation, like they've been here for about the same amount of time as you have, or maybe more, and comment on their stuff, follow them on the social media things, because even if they have, for example, 250,000 subscribers on YouTube, if they're active on the platform, they will notice people who are always coming to the live streams, who are sending tips, who are, talking to them on Twitter, who are participating in whatever collabs they're organizing, who are active on their servers. And even if those people aren't creating anything, you notice your regulars. At least I hope you do. So, sometimes it doesn't amount to anything, and sometimes you end up becoming friends and you chit chat about stuff, and then you collab on something together, and you sort of establish a relationship from there.
That sounds like good advice as well for getting to know people who are above your experience as well.
It's hard to speak for other online creators because I like to talent scout. So I'm always looking for people who are new, who have a lot of potential. If you're not doing anything, someone like me isn't going to notice. And there's not, there's no way I'm the only person who does this. But you're always looking for the up and coming people who are talented, good people to work with, get stuff done on time. Oh, God, that matters so much.
That's right. I'll probably add one more point to that, and that is people who have something to offer.
Such as?
Such as if you have a very particular set of skills, one small thing that someone does better than anyone else, that kind of thing.
Oh, I see what you mean. So, yeah.
Or you're seeking out the kind of people who could really benefit from what you can do. Because, there is some networking which is like cold emailing or approaching someone at a bar or whatever.
Yeah, that happens. Over time, you can teach yourself to be open to that. It's daunting at first. Cold calls.
Well, there's two types. There is like the, hey, let's just have a chat kind, but also the deliberate, hey, I feel like you could benefit from the specific thing that I do, and then hear what they have to say about it.
I mean, and you can do that, and sometimes it works. Like, every now and then I'll get people contacting me, here's my voice reel.
Well, because animation's so broad, there are so many different little parts that you can specialize in. So even in voice acting, it could be like if you drill in on doing a very particular kind of character and then...
Oh, yes.
And then seek people who look like they are in need of that kind of character, then you're probably more likely to find something. Of course, you're more likely to get typecast, but hey, at least you're finding consistent stuff.
It's like the Morgan Freeman of animation. You have the specific character voice. You're mentioning that. I can picture, I know people who have done that. They have a very specific character voice that gets casted in a lot of different roles.
Well, that happens to me, like not with voice acting, but like I do different kinds of animation. But the thing I get hired for the most is node compositing in Toon Boom. Like that's the thing that I've definitely spent the most time trying to figure out. And that's what most people have noticed and therefore seek out.
Node compositing in Toon Boom. See, that's a very specific skill.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I focus on it, I suppose, because it keeps me in particular with some offers, whereas I know other people where they've drilled very heavily on rigging, and sometimes not just rigging, but like a particular type of rigging. Maybe they just do like envelope rigs or whatever. It doesn't mean they don't do other types of rigs. It just means they are exceptionally good at that one kind of rig, right? So if if you need that kind of rig, then they're going to be the first person to call, the first person to be called from like everywhere.
Yeah, and because everybody in the network is like, oh no, yeah, he's the one who does the nodes. If you're dealing with Toon Boom and you need effects and things layered on top of each other and, easy ways to build it, that's Onion. Go get him.
So sometimes it can feel counterproductive because...
you're pigeonholed. Don't you ever feel pigeonholed?
Well, I'm not talking about myself here, but just like the general idea of like focusing in on a niche thing. So like if I was to take something like envelope rigs, for example, which I'm not very good at, but I've known people who are exceptional at it. Like maybe it feels a bit counterproductive to be like, well, is this going to get jobs because not everybody needs envelope rigs? But it's more the case of everybody who needs envelope rigs is going to come to you.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay, I see what you mean. That kind of brings up the thing is, don't you worry about getting typecast, I guess, then?
Oh, absolutely. This is why you have to make sure that it's something that you're not going to get tired of in a hurry. And if you drill in so much on that one thing that it's your only skill set, then it's not a long-term solution is the problem, because techniques and styles and technology is always changing. So it's not going to be at the forefront forever.
It's also fair to say, though, that it's not as if you're actively seeking out a niche. That sort of thing kind of tends to arise naturally. Like you're working in a program and you realize you really like doing this one type of thing. You get good at it, and yeah.
Yeah, totally. If you find one type of thing, get really good at it, and then it takes some of the pressure off, because now you might find that people start finding you, and it's not a tech thing either. It goes with style as well. I've known a bunch of artists who animate and draw in such a distinctive, recognizable look.
Yes.
That people seek them out for that look. I assume this happens in the commission world all the time. A lot of the commissions you get would be because of your style.
Yeah. So I have a group of friends who always commission me for a certain type of artwork because they like the style that I do it in. So whenever one of the new people from that group shows up, I'm like, do you want it in that style? Just want to check. It's always that particular art style. So
I'm guessing voice acting is the same sort of deal. Like having range is nice, but...
Yeah, the thing about voice acting, well, guess what? It's not about what they do, it's about who they know. So for the voice acting roles, I usually just cast whoever I happen to know that's around and available.
Yeah.
And I sort of slowly broaden my network. So, for example, the other day I just posted a thing on Twitter. I said, can anybody around, can you just send me screaming? And so I'll get a couple people who send it in, right? And then I'll be like, wow, well, this person volunteered to do this, and this is a really great take. And then I say, okay, well, next time I need something, I'll try asking them.
Yeah.
And then, I'll pay them for it. So kind of like once you work with somebody and you're happy with the way things turned out, you tend to keep going back to them.
Yeah, I've seen that happen a bunch of times, people who aren't voice actors at all, but they happen to be around people who need voice actors now. So I'm just like, hey, you do a funny voice. Do that funny voice now.
Wow. Okay. So that happens on the studio side of things too.
I hope that doesn't undermine the profession, because it's not that anybody can do it. This is more like
background characters,
small scale. You're in a pinch.
Yeah.
I did see a scenario recently where we had to, like a producer had to go find like a dozen actors like over a weekend, and then fly to another state to record it all, and that must have been brutal, trying to go through all that casting that quickly. And that wasn't just like grabbing the animators to get them to do the voices. They did have to go find proper actors, and I guess they would have had to have been good ones to be able to do that much that quickly.
Yeah, that's a really tight deadline.
So that it leads into yet another topic, which is putting out the daily fires.
Have you ever had a literal fire at all?
I do have a fire story.
Oh, well, let's hear the fire story.
Okay, it's not connected to anything animation, but it might be just an entertaining way to close things out.
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, actually, I guess it's a little bit connected, because I had a bunch of friends over for like an animation jam. So it was the next morning. Everyone had gone home, save one who had traveled interstate to be there. So he was just in the bungalow hanging out. And I was in the backyard doing some yard work, which I'd been putting off for like a month or so. Basically just attending to this huge pile of dead grass. And while I was standing there, I noticed this suspicious column of black smoke coming out from behind the neighbor's wooden fence. And I thought, that's a bit odd. So I have a bit of a sticky beak and poke my head over the fence and see the whole side of their house just ablaze. and this fire like creeping down the floor along this wooden fence towards my very large pile of dead grass. Which I think, okay, I don't think that's meant to be there. So I run around to their front door and, I have a knock and I'm just sort of, hi, is your house on fire? And she's like, no. I'm like, I think it might be. And then I just run around the side of this person's house. They come out the door to follow me, and I sort of just run around the side, and there's this huge fire, like, at the side of their house. And she comes around the corner fully, sees the fire, and, flips out, like, oh my goodness. So, like, okay. So I grabbed the hose, and managed to put it all out in time. Fortunately, it hadn't gotten any bigger in the time between noticing it and getting around there, despite the fact that the fire was encapsulating a wheelbarrow full of rugs that had somehow not caught ablaze,
What?
and a clothesline full of fabrics that were licking the flames, which had somehow also not become ablaze. However, the bags of powdered concrete on the ground were completely destroyed by the fire.
Why? That's just a strange thing.
Okay. So meanwhile, as I'm hosing it all down and realizing that I'm hosing down bags of powdered concrete, I'm just thinking, okay, you're welcome about saving your house, but sorry about your concrete. So then afterwards, I just returned to the house to my friend who's just happily sitting in the bungalow playing games on the PC. She's feeling like, okay. I just think how fortunate I was that I happened to be in the backyard during that particular 10-minute window, attending to this chore that I'd been putting off for weeks and weeks. Like I pretty much never spend time outside in that yard.
I'm trying to think of a way to tie it into, it's not what you know, but who you know.
Well, let's tie it into next week's episode, putting out fires.
Yes, that's perfect, of course.
How do you avoid it? You don't avoid it. You just deal with it when it happens. Well, you can avoid it. Please try to avoid it. I don't want to have to spend 3 months trying to fix your mistake, which you could have avoided if you spent an extra 5 minutes.
Oh, you're already getting onto the topic. All right, so next time, putting out fires. This has been Animoot. Thanks for listening.